welcome to this explainer. If you've ever felt like your family boundaries are constantly being tested, well, trust me, you are not alone. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating lecture that decodes the exact mechanics of family interference. And more importantly, it provides a highly logical blueprint for setting boundaries that actually work.
So, let's dive right into this question that plagues so many modern relationships. Why exactly does this happen so frequently today, and how do we stop it from tearing relationships apart? The source material we're looking at today tackles this not just as some messy emotional issue, but as a structural, logical problem. It suggests that if you don't address this interference correctly, it's absolutely going to drive a permanent wedge between you and your spouse.
Section 1. The Age of Interference. To fix this problem, we really have to understand why modern parents and in-laws seem to interfere so much more than they used to. Back in the day, boundaries held up mainly because, honestly, there was a mutual lack of knowledge. People just didn't have the advanced education to systematically break those boundaries down. But today, we live in a knowledge society. Our parents are highly educated, and because they're smarter and more articulate, they actually use logic and reasoning to infiltrate our lives. The old walls have completely crumbled under the weight of modern intellect. And the danger of this unauthorized infiltration is absolutely severe. Our source notes, give them an inch and the infiltration spreads from the arm to the shoulder and eventually takes over the entire mind. It's a pretty vivid image, right? If you unlatch that gate even just a little bit, they don't stop. It spreads like wildfire. If you lack the discernment to block it early on, you are going to be completely overwhelmed. Which brings us to a truly shocking statistic derived straight from our source material. Mothers who excessively interfere in their married daughters' lives have a 97% chance of having failed in their own life or marriage. Wow. So the crucial point here is that this interference is usually born out of their own unresolved attachments and failures, not genuine helpfulness. The analysis points out that mothers who are successfully navigating their own lives and marriages, they rarely cross that line into their kids' lives. But the ones who have failed or are living with unresolved issues tend to latch onto their children out of attachment and greed. If you let them interfere, you are seriously risking repeating their exact cycle of failure. Section 2. The Trap of Reliance. So if this interference is so damaging, why on earth do young couples open the door to it in the first place? Well, the lecturer turns the mirror right back on us. We often comply because we secretly want something from them, whether it's expecting a financial inheritance, wanting some easy help with childcare or daily chores, or honestly just avoiding immediate conflict. We lean on them because it feels easier in the moment. But make no mistake, this reliance is a massive trap. The source makes this crystal clear. Relying on your parents makes you subservient. The second you lean on their power or their resources, you hand over your own authority. You might think you're getting an easy ride today, but this compliance literally robs you of the ability to handle tomorrow's difficulties. You effectively become ignorant and powerless when it comes to solving your own life's challenges. To truly survive in modern society, you have to take full responsibility for your own life. No shortcuts. Section 3. Setting healthy boundaries. So how do we actually push back against this illogical infiltration without causing a massive family explosion? Here is your new mantra. If you don't understand it, don't do it. In a modern knowledge society, compliance without logical understanding is just foolish. If your mother-in-law makes a demand that does not logically compute for you, you simply cannot follow it just out of some sense of traditional duty. I absolutely love this exact script provided by the lecturer for these situations. It's, please help me understand this first. It's brilliant because it allows you to be cold, logical, and perfectly polite all at the same time. You don't yell, you don't throw a tantrum, you simply say, I don't quite understand this, please help me understand. If they cannot provide a logical explanation that actually makes sense to you, the answer is no. You ask them to wait until it does make sense. Because here's the thing, if they can't logically explain why you should do something, you absolutely must firmly refuse. Compromising even just once destroys your leverage. Doing something you don't understand just to appease them means you have bowed down. And bowing down just once means you are grabbed by the neck forever. You set a precedent that your logic doesn't matter. You have to stay firm. Section 4. Handling forced expectations. Let's apply this framework to a really specific, highly stressful scenario. Forced religion. Where parents try to impose their lifelong beliefs onto a new son or daughter-in-law. Here is your actionable 3-step guide. First, acknowledge the request politely. Second, invoke that script we just talked about. Ask them to help you understand it logically.
And third, firmly refuse to commit blindly if it still doesn't make sense to you.
And this brings us to a super practical compromise mentioned in the analysis, the 3-time rule. This shows you are open-minded but absolutely will not be forced into blind obedience. You agree to go, say, up to 3 times, but strictly with the mindset of studying and observing it to see if it makes logical sense to you. If, after those visits, it still doesn't compute, you cut it off firmly. You do not continue to fake it just to keep the peace.
Ultimately, we have to look at the root cause of why we fail to uphold these boundaries. The only reason you get dragged into these uncomfortable family situations is because of an imbalance in personal strength between you and your spouse. Think about it. If you are constantly being pulled into in-law demands, it means you're operating from the 30% weaker position while your spouse holds that 70% stronger position. You are essentially being treated as a subordinate.
The absolute ultimate takeaway from this whole analysis is that you have got to grow your own internal power and intellect. You can't just complain about the interference. You have to become someone who cannot be easily dragged around. If you build your own strength and act with cold, logical clarity, the dynamic shifts. A stronger partner doesn't get forced into irrational family obligations. Instead, your spouse will naturally start to follow your grounded, logical lead. I really want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on as you navigate your own family boundaries this week. Are you actively building your own intellectual and emotional strength? Or are you just following blindly for the sake of temporary peace? Because true harmony in a family doesn't come from subservience. It comes from mutual respect built on clear, logical boundaries. Start applying this knowledge, ask the hard questions, and take back your leverage. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.